Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 215. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, uh, Daniel from The Inscriber, Gus from Corruption and Boxing. And after being away for a minute, he's back. The man folks love to hate, or hate to love, or hate, love, indifferent, whatever. Scorsese, what's going on? What's going on, fellas?
What's up? What's up? Good to be back too.
For those who are new, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Once again, as I say always to begin the show, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, and blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. To find all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com is the link. You check the right of the blog page, you'll find links to our channels and pages on Facebook, G Plus, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM for the folks over in the UK, as well as Mixcloud. Let's get the show started this evening. We first heading off to China. Well, no, not to China, Malaysia. Excuse me, Malaysia. Manny Pacquiao, his return to the ring, coming off of his loss to Jeff Horn last year, fought Lucas Matthysse. I'll go to you, Scorsese, since it's been a while since you've been on here. Pacquiao had his way with Matthysse, stopped him in 7th round, put him down, I believe, 3 times in the fight. Listen, for me, if you want to say Pacquiao looked good, okay, fine, he did. My problem is that he did so against a Matthysse who didn't have any passion, who didn't come to fight. The lethargy, or how lethargic he looked in his last fight against the Thailand fighter, it showed itself once again. So I can't get a good read from this fight. I'm not going to go out here and say Pacquiao is quote unquote back because of how, to me, pathetic Matthysse looked in the ring. There was no spirit from him, no real effort from him. Your thoughts?
I never went into the fight wondering if Pacquiao is gonna be back, and I was just happy for him that 39 years old, he still got something he love in his life that he wants to do. This is a Matthysse that he retired once already. Basically, he packed it up, went to Argentina, and then said, "Well, maybe I'm coming back." We don't know the reasons for that. That could definitely been I need some moolah, or who knows, the way that his body language is in all the fights back. I need some moolah would be the first thing that you think. So he got him some moolah. Pacquiao was able to do that for him. I mean, it's boxing. It's a job. It's a career they picked. If you can live off Manny Pacquiao, then it's just big up to Manny Pacquiao. Throughout his whole career, he's been able to make people want to see him. Still today, they want to see him. He can get a guy like Matthysse who probably needs some moolah. And that, what does it mean in the division? Promise you, I didn't go into it thinking that. I didn't leave out of it thinking that. Um, the most important thing I picked up from this whole Pacquiao experience, it was Lomachenko's team saying we won't go up to fight Pacquiao, and it's like, are you nuts? Are you stupid? Like that, that's big money opportunity for you. Uh, Other guys, I mean, I'll compare it to something recent. You're in your prime, Lomachenko. Pacquiao's the old man. You can go up 2 divisions. It's a guy at light heavyweight that's 41 years old, willing to go up 25 pounds to fight a guy that's knocking out cruiserweights and heavyweights. Manny Pacquiao's only knocking out people that don't want to fight. So what are you talking about? I don't understand that. That's really all I've taken from Manny all this week. Nothing about Floyd talking about a rematch. Nothing about Jeff Horn, no Crawford fight, no Thurman mandatory fight. Man, I'm just happy for Pacquiao. I can finally appreciate him because a lot of the stupid things being said about Mayweather and him, it got Joshua Wilder like, and it started to get on your damn nerves, and you didn't want to hear either one of their names sometime. That's over, and I can appreciate them even if it's later. Do your thing, Manny. Hats off to you.
Your thoughts on the fight, Gus, and the comments in the aftermath, and then you can follow up, Daniel.
Mike, MP Promotions, the reviewers his sort of inaugural, the main promotion for the first time after, long relationship with sort of Top Rank, and departing from his trainer as well. So, and obviously now he's a senator, is no longer, so his duties have obviously increased as well. So when you're managing all of these tasks simultaneously, and you're still trying to fight as well, and you got to remember, he's older than Lucas Matthysse. He's had double the fights Lucas Matthysse's had as well. So for me, I think it was the best card of the year. You had 4 50-50 competitive fights on paper. So it was kind of refreshing in that sense. And my emphasis was more on the lower weight fights, but this particular fight, Lucas Matthysse, he's a puncher. Started off at light welterweight to welterweight. So you can argue, is he naturally a bigger man than Manny Pacquiao? I think he is, but Pacquiao's pulled even at 154. So I'm not sure what's happened later on in the life, but naturally Matthysse, started off a lot heavier. So apart from his losses, he's pretty much knocked everybody out. He did suffer an orbital bone breakage, but you couldn't really begrudge a man to retire from that. Your sight, he's still got another 40-50 years in life, so I'm not going to begrudge anybody who has an eye injury and will quit a fight or subsequently. But moving up to welterweight, he had one good fight initially where he knocked out a guy, I can't remember his name, but then up against in his last fight, he fought a much bigger welterweight, and he seemed to definitely struggle with the guy's movement on the back foot. Matthysse has not really been blessed too much as a boxer, although when Garcia took him briefly, he started implementing a little bit better boxing ability, but more or less he's a power puncher. But in this particular fight, I think his problem was that he gave Manny Pacquiao too much space. He'll attempt to fire and he'll attempt a pot shot from distance as well. But once he's had success, and he had sparing success, when he landed like a left, maybe a left jab or a straight right hand, he wouldn't really come in and try and follow. He wouldn't, try and, constrict Manny's room. And that's what you have to try and do, with a boxer who, in the latter part of his years, has become more of a cerebral sort of, boxer, counter puncher, with all of the wealth of experience. And I think what Manny did in this fight was his punch variety, his jab, but in particular, his right hand, his right hook. I thought it was the best punch of the fight, as well as his uppercut. And, Matthysse, during the fight, Matthysse realized that Manny would turn to his right hook. So what the error Matthysse was doing was that in his defense, he was shifting his weight to the right and ducking his head. So Manny would then step in and follow up with an uppercut. And so therefore that right hook not only worked because it was connecting, but it was also setting that trap and luring him into that defensive position where Manny would then come in with the uppercut. And we saw, the first knockdown was I thought it was a fantastic, right hook uppercut to put him down and put him down heavily. Pacquiao certainly looked good in the weigh-in. Looked quite strong. He was talking about eating a steak before, so clearly, his weight was around 142, 144 well before. But drug testing with that issue is a completely different story. I thought he looked excellent. His hand speed was still there, and also his defense as well. People don't really give him a lot of credit. He tends to block a lot of punches with his lead hand, but he steps out of range beautifully to try to, evade punches. He still has very good stability, very good movement on his legs, the upper body as well. He likes to roll that head away, lean back. So defensively, he's actually very good. But the speed, power, punch variety, the timing, everything was there. And I give credit to the man. You know, he's got his first knockout in whatever 9 years. You know, the belt doesn't really mean absolutely fuck all. You know, he's a multi-time world champion. Just a case of, you know, it's just a case of a £20 million tax bill, I'm afraid, to the United States federal authorities. So, you know, that's really the purpose of the fight. So I'm sure he'll have probably 2 or 3 more fights as well, you know, to clear off his debts, and then, you know, I'm sure he'll be the president of the Philippines in the next. I think he can run term in 5 years' time, whatever. So I think he'll go for that, and we'll definitely see him as the president.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
First thing, this is a win for Manny Pacquiao in a promotional sense, because we have to remember, not too long ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was legitimate doubt that this fight was even going to take place. That there was word that the money wasn't there, the venue wasn't there, and there's legitimate worry. But like I said, that's the first victory for Pacquiao. He was able to secure the funds and have a main event of that magnitude with just him, not any major help from Top Rank. As far as the fight itself, I'm with you in that camp, Mike. Where Pacquiao looked impressive, but then you have to take into account what fighter he was facing. He was facing a Matthysse that really, for the most part, pretty much has checked out of the sport. And it could tell, like, from the first fight for the fight, where he didn't really try to press too much with the right hand. I remember the old Matthysse, the pre Danny Garcia fight Matthysse, really stepping on the gas when he felt that the guy couldn't really hurt him. Or even in the fight with Molina, to try to get up and actually try to counter this fight. He didn't do none of that. He did land a couple of right hands, but they were far too few and far too between to do anything to disrupt Manny. Now, Manny had, like I said, had his standard stance, had his good movement going into it, and it was just a decent night for Manny as far as the fight, but you can't really measure it right now when you compare it to what the other welterweights are up to. And let's talk about that for a minute. Like Gus mentioned, like he was eating a steak and was weighing 142, 143 pounds. So there's a reason why Lomachenko's team is saying you could do the fight lightweight. There's a legitimate chance that Manny could probably still make lightweight and might do it pretty comfortably. So there's that aspect to it. And ultimately, the WBA situation, that may be both a blessing and a curse, because the belt really doesn't mean anything. It's the regular belt. It doesn't really mean much. But should Keith Thurman prolong his absence and force the WBA's hand, that'll give Manny the WBA full welterweight title. And apparently he wants to fight again in the U.S., which means, guess who then is going to be waiting for him alongside Bob Arum? Bud. It doesn't just become then a fight for your freedom, it becomes a title unification. So it's a blessing that, okay, Manny's able to produce money. You can show that he can be the successful promoter really in a really, really good venue. But it could be a curse, because it could lead him to the one fight his team has been avoiding for him.
I'll just go around the panel here to Scorsese as well as you, Gus. Daniel mentioned a fight possibly upcoming between Manny and Bud. Lomachenko's name has also been put out there as well. Team Lomachenko made basically a demand that should that fight happen. They wanted at 135, no catch weight. Given Gus's earlier statement about the issues with taxes and whatnot, that's probably more than likely the reason why Manny is still fighting, because he got a huge debt here in the U.S. Not necessarily what's Manny's next fight. The question for me is, fellas, where do you think Manny will go in terms of his next big fight? Do you see him going Bud? Do you see him going Lomachenko? Somebody else at 147, one of the other champions. In terms of Manny's next big fight specifically, what direction do you think he will go?
I personally want Manny to stay far away from Spence, far away from Thurman, far away from Bud as well, man. Like it doesn't look like winnable fights. I saw what I saw with Jeff Horn, and that is what it is. You know, it's Matthysse doesn't do it for me. I don't if he feels that he should do this, hey, more props to him. Man got the heart of a lion. He's older, he's younger. I mean, excuse me, he's older, he's much smaller than all these guys. He's been through way more than all these guys. If anything, the Lomachenko fight, if you bring Lomachenko up in weight, is more fair because Lomachenko isn't used to the physicality of weight that Manny's used to. I'm not gonna say that Manny's the bigger man because probably really ain't. He probably probably gonna be looking about the same. But maybe he's a little taller or something. I don't know the actual numbers. But it's safe to say that we haven't said, oh, Manny's bigger than anybody in the wild. So Lomachenko might be somewhere close to him. So that just seems more fair. I don't think anybody's gonna get major credit for beating him, and they shouldn't. But they should just be happy they got to share the ring with a legend because he's a living legend. That shit is that. Manny's a living legend, and they should just be happy they got to share a ring with him, and boom, I really want him to do. I don't agree with Gus knows this guy Precise Presenter too much, but he went on the podcast I was watching before Gus came on, and he said he just hopes Manny just goes on a cherry picking spree of 35 and 40s, and I agree. Like man, if you can do it, brother, do it. Don't go get yourself hurt.
Your thoughts, Gus?
Yeah, stylistically and from an intrigue perspective, the Vasyl Lomachenko fight, that's the fight that really interests me between the two. Southpaw and Southpaw. And we know Manny in the past was trying to push for that fight, but it was the Lomachenko. I think his manager was, and even Vasily himself were reticent on the fight. I don't think they wanted to fight a veteran straight after Guillermo Rigondeaux, where in his post-fight he was he didn't really see the value of that fight too much, given the weight discrepancy, and he's right. A guy jumping up 2 weights, and now Manny Pacquiao. Vasily is probably thinking, how much credit am I going to get, against a fighter who's, 39, 40 years old, etc. Maybe shifting down in weight. But where I think it's going to happen, I just got a gut feeling, Mike, we're going to see Manny Pacquiao and Amir Khan in the Middle East next.
I've heard that discussion as well.
Yeah,
I don't like that fight, to be honest with you. But yeah, continue on.
Yeah, it's Manny Pacquiao. His proclivity now is not about unifications or being pound for pound number one or any of that. If the P4P, if it was based on resume, then he would be number one, because nobody in boxing has got a better resume than him. He's already attained that status before. So at this late stage in his career, it's not about that at all. It's a completely different mind frame, etc. So he's not going to challenge. He's not going to challenge the top tier. I don't think Errol Spence, Crawford, and why should he? I mean, he's done it all in the past. This is now a new generation. Errol Spence has already come out and said the fight needs 2 years to marinate against Terence Crawford. So look at the negativity in his talk. So these guys have got a fucking nerve talking about somebody else. You know, they got no aspirations of fighting whatsoever. So let's ignore the public demeanor that they put on. You know, but no. You know, Pacquiao, I think he would still spank both of their asses anyway. But so yeah, I think a fight outside the United States, definitely. A fight within the United States, you know, according to his publicist, who's already come out and made many comments about this relationship with top rank. You know, Mike, is something that I've been looking into for many years. You know, there's real underlying problems between the two camps. I think Bob Arum has financially raped Manny Pacquiao for years. You've just got to look at his purse situation, his tax situation. You know, he's been paying him in installments. Fight purchases have never really been executed. It's a very dark and somber underlying relationship. If you really get down and read some of the cryptic comments from his publicist, who's made so many comments in the past about the relationship, and now he was trying to extricate himself from Top Rank a number of years ago. You know, Manny wasn't promised monies as he was due in his contract. He had to sign waivers and disclaimers to take lower pays. That's why Bob Arum gave him the fight in Australia, because he couldn't pay him $20 million for the Jesse Vargas fight in the United States. So I don't see him fighting in the United States, Mike. I see him fighting back in the Middle East. I think we know Amir Khan has been you know, endeavoring for that fight for a number of years. So that's something that could happen. You know, Amir Khan, Manny Pacquiao in the Middle East, or some other opponent, but over there, high value money, financial backers coming in. That's what I see.
Okay. I don't know you, Gary, because that's why I have you muted. Lisa, long time
Yes.
fan of the show. She listens to the show just about every week. What you may have to do, if you're listening on a
put my picture up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to put my picture up.
No need to worry about that. Just as long as we can hear you, that's fine. That's fine. We're talking Manny Pacquiao, his stoppage over Matthysse. Your quick thoughts on that?
Oh, well, first, thanks for having me on, and thank you, and hi, hello everybody to the panel.
Hello.
My thoughts about Manny. Hello everybody. My thoughts about Manny Pacquiao. That was a great win for him. You know, even on the downward spiral, he's at the end of his career, so I guess it made him. It was a good thing to see that knockout for him, but like somebody said, Lucas Matthysse isn't what he used to be either. So, but it was still good to see Manny get out there and get the victory and get the knockout, because it's been so many years since he had a knockout, and it just goes to show he still got that power. They say the power is like the last thing to go. So I was happy for him. I was.
We've been talking about what direction we think Pacquiao will go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Fight with Bud, fight with Lomachenko, fight with Amir Khan. Moving forward, where do you think Pacquiao will go? Because he has to fight again because of money issues.
You know what? Me personally, I think he need to stay away from them young dogs. That's just my personal take.
Okay. Go ahead, continue.
He's not as fast as he used to be. I just don't think. I think that Bud Crawford will be a disaster for him.
Okay. Want to talk about some other fights on that card. Going to start with you, Gus. We've talked about Muhammad Waseem on this show a couple times. He was set last year to get a title opportunity against Diego Higa. I'm gonna mute you, Lisa, because I'm hearing some background noise.
Okay.
Um, we talked about Waseem. He was supposed to get a title opportunity against Diego Higa last year. Unfortunately, things didn't happen because one, he had some promotional issues, and two, Higa lost earlier this year, right? So he gets an opportunity to fight for the vacant IBF belt because Matthysse moved up in weight. He fought Mthalane from South Africa, uh, lost via 12-round decision. For me, Gus, it seemed a case of one, the experience of Mthalane played a role early. Two, when it was a bit too little too late, because once Waseem started to really warm up and get into the fight over the second half, the final third, the final 4 rounds of the fight, he was having success, put Mthalane down in round 11. Your thoughts on this? Was it just a case of inexperience that played a role in Waseem's part, or was it something about his style that you saw specifically that Mthalane took advantage of?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. You know, this is definitely the fight I was waiting for specifically on this card, and it was good to get Waseem back in the ring as well. You know, we've been speaking a lot about him. He's a very unusual sort of fighter, Pakistan descent, but based in South Korea, but fighting out of the Mayweather gym with Jeff Mayweather. So pretty sort of pretty covers, you know, multi-jurisdictional in that sense. You know, had a amateur career, but what was it? His 9th fight, and he's 30 years old. So, you know, very much relying on that amateur pedigree to try and fast track in the professional ranks, and floating as well between the different weight categories as well. You know, fighting even at bantamweight, but coming back down to flyweight now. Up against, you know, Murati babyface Mthalane, who's been a career-long flyweight, you know, had the IBF belt before, and people got to realize this guy was a tremendous fighter. He beat John Real Casimiro, two-weight world champion, and Zalani Ferry, two-weight champion. He beat them back-to-back and stopped both of them. So, you know, a very good CV, very good fighter, kept himself at that weight for over 10 years. You know, tremendous shape. One of the real hidden gems of world boxing, Mike, for over, you know, for a decade. So it was good to see him come up on, you know, on the big card. I know he fought in Vegas before, and it was ironic he was fighting for his old belt. The guy who he beat, Casimiro, I think vacated the IBF and moved up to super flyweight. So, you know, he got his opportunity on the back of getting some victories. So, Waseem in this fight, Mike, I'll tell you, you know, frustration compounds me, both in the way they calibrated the strategy. You know, what the hell was Jeff Mayweather doing? You know, he was too busy in the girl collection strip club, looking at some tractors and rakes instead of, you know, devising a game plan, because Waseem, with the physical attributes, you know, bigger fighter, taller, longer as well. Early on, you know, he was literally standing at punch range now, and he was taking the punches on the gloves, on the arms, etc. Up against a fighter who you know from historically is going to fight the same. There's nothing new he's going to implement to his game plan. He is a high work rate, attritional fighter, high volume, and that's how he fights pretty much throughout, and that's exactly how he's been fighting. So for you to stand there and take the punches is, to me, it's insane, because Waseem is not a natural counter puncher. Now, you know, you're the younger fighter, and Waseem has the ability to actually use his legs. Now, why don't you get out of range of the punches? Now, you're more likely to make an attritional puncher deplete his energy by making him miss, as opposed to, you know, taking the punches on the gloves and the arms. He's not going to get as tired from the recoil effect because he's got cushioning for those punches. So for him to take it but also not be a counter puncher. I could not understand what he was doing. You know, Waseem, he likes to turn over that left hook, and that was his objective. You know, he wanted to work the body, but he takes a little bit too long to cycle into that punch because he's really trying to get leverage on the punch. You know, he'll really try and plant his feet and land it. And Murati could actually see the punch coming, and he was landing straight right hands, and his jab was just connecting. You know, it was piercing the guard. He was coming around the guard with his right hand as well. You know, so he was winning pretty much a lot of the early rounds. You know, no urgency in Muhammad Waseem. You know, kept doing the same thing. I was trying to focus in on his instructions to see what whether they were trying to invoke some urgency with him, maybe even trying to change up his tactics. But unfortunately for Waseem, he urgency only started setting in the later rounds, and then we got some tremendous exchanges. Murati starting, he was starting to ship a little bit of punishment to the body, and that was giving some opportunities for Waseem to come up top. He was having some success. I think Murati was actually feeling some of the body shots as well. He eventually put him down with a straight left hand as well. His work rate as well. If you look at his, the distribution of his punches, from once he realized, he must have realized, must have been self-conscious that he was getting outworked. Then he was trying to increase his volume of punches as well, and that gave opportunities. And certainly the last two rounds, we had some tremendous, back and forth exchanges. Waseem starting to walk down his opponent as well, but you got to give credit to Murati getting floored in the 11th to come back up in the 12th and win that round as well. He showed tremendous heart, grit, tenacity, and the will to win and try and get back that his belt. So in the end, I thought it was a fair decision. I felt Murati, despite being floored at 10th round, I thought he was the better fighter. Paced himself very well. Landed, outworked Muhammad Waseem. I do think it's a case of missed opportunities. Plus, Mike, I think he's got to learn how to develop. He's got to learn how to counterpunch. He will stay in the high guard for far too long, try and block punches. He should be trying to evade slip punches. Try and come up with double angles, not be standing in front of his opponent. Not just relying on that. I'm the better fighter, and eventually I'm going to break you down and stop you. That's not always going to happen, and it was a rude awakening for him. I think he'll be tremendously down from that defeat. I sincerely hope that they implement some adjustments, because he definitely does have ability there, but sadly for him, he didn't utilize it in that fight to the best of his ability.
Reminded me of the old Ghanaian style that you saw from Benak Corte or a Joshua Cloudy, the way he would keep his hands up and he wouldn't punch until you finished punching. That's frustrating, because you can let a guy out hustle you, and that's exactly what Mthalane did, particularly in the early portion. My thing was, he was the younger fighter, the stronger fighter, more power. If you're going to do that, jab and focus on the body, because Mthalane, he was moving some, but not so much that Waseem wouldn't have been able to catch up to him. He just wasn't active enough for me early on. And to Mthalane's credit, he took advantage of that and really, as I said, outworked and out-hustled this guys. I'm going to open it up the discussion for everybody else here who saw the fight. Your impressions on what went down. And unmute your mics, please. Anyone, or did nobody else see the fight?
You bunch of
I missed it, unfortunately.
I didn't see that fight. I'm not gonna lie.
Scorsese?
No, I only saw Lou Ben. I wanted to watch Lou Ben. I
Okay,
was
Me too.
okay,
That's the one I was on.
let's move the discussion forward then and go about Lou Ben. He fought Carlos Canizales with Canizales' WBA belt at 108 pounds. I'll go straight to you, Scorsese, and then you can follow up, Lisa. Lou Ben trying to do what Vasyl Lomachenko couldn't, that is win a world title in his second bout. Listen, based on skill wise alone, I thought Lou Ben had a halfway decent shot, but because I wasn't impressed with Canizales' previous two fights, um, in Japan. But give Carlos Canizales credit. He fought, to me, the best fight of his career. Really exposed Lubin, his lack of experience, his lack of class and guile. Good, exciting fight, but overall, Carlos Canizales beat up Lubin, punished him really over the second half of the fight, and eventually stopping him. First, you, Scorsese.
It's not often you see a fight get into the 12th round, and whether it's by stoppage or decision, the guy leaves on a stretcher. And I'm basically pointing at the corner. They should have called it a while ago. Just a foul thing. Young dude, shout out to his heart because he showed a lot of it. But that dog, he ain't take nothing but a beating, a whooping all night. He looked strong. He didn't look faster. He didn't look strong. He didn't look nothing. He had no advantage and got the brakes beat off him. And I'm just trying to think and remember when the last time I seen the fight go. I know it didn't go the distance, but it was in the 12th round, and the dude still leaves out on the stretch. I just can't remember because at that point in time, at some point you learn, yo, I'm about to pull my man. We gonna save something. Bruh. No, they let dude take a ass whooping, hard left hooks, all kind of punches he got hit with. Just trying to be on the move, he couldn't do that. You couldn't run from the man. You couldn't sit in the pocket with the man. Pull the plug. Pull the plug at some point. I don't know how much credit to get. The hell, I can't even tell you the guy's last name that won the fight. I know he's from Venezuela. I basically watched this one because now it was real high on this dude, and it didn't pan out. It did not pan out. And maybe they need to rethink these amateurs getting title fights. He went from what was it, a 4 rounder to a 12, or was it an 8 to 12?
I can't remember the distance of his previous bout, but he had fought some bouts in AIBA before he technically turned pro. So yeah.
Look, man, look, homie got the brakes beat off, and he's not fighting some dude that's 37 years old that you can pull the championship off. You fighting a dude 25, 26. What? Pacquiao promotes this dude, right?
No.
Okay, I heard Pacquiao was the promoter of him, and that was part of. And I know Boo Boy was in the corner, right? Boo Boy was definitely in the corner.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm just like, what in the hell? Why in the hell? Nah, no, I fighter safety. That ain't something to play about. This man should have been pulled a long time ago. That's how I look at it.
Your thoughts, Lisa?
I am in so much agreement with Low Place because I was disturbed watching that fight because he was such a just becoming a pro and coming out not the Olympics, but he might have been in an Olympics. But it was just disturbing to watch that. And I understand he wanted to break a record and everything, but he was outclassed. He was really outclassed. And don't get me wrong, in the beginning, he was pretty good in the beginning, and but he hit him with a good shot, but it was just like, it's about fighter safety, and I hope that young man is okay, because that was really disturbing to watch. It really was, and they should have threw in the towel. Boo Bear earlier on. I don't know. It was very hard to watch that. It really was.
Going to you, Daniel, your thoughts, and then you can finish up, Gus.
As soon as I heard Boo Boy was in the corner, I'll admit the guy is hard, but that kind of shows you the lack of experience in the corner. That they didn't have the wherewithal. Now remember, this is Boo Boy's like first foray as a head trainer or somebody really involved in the training camp as a head guy. He's usually under somebody, but it just shows the lack of wherewithal, lack of awareness. Yes, he let your guy go on the show. Maybe he wanted to do that, but guess what? Like Chris said, he left him a stretcher. You shouldn't reach a point where leaving him on a stretcher is an option unless you get into like a Gotti and Ward situation where both guys leave him on a stretcher. It can't just be one guy, you finish the fight and one guy just leaves on a stretcher. That shows complete negligence.
And everybody else unmute your mics, please. Here's some background noise.
Breaker 19.
Okay, continue on, Daniel. Continue on, Daniel. Okay, I see Daniel. He had to drop off. Are you still there, Daniel? Let me go to Gus, and then I'll hopefully go back to Daniel. Unmute your mic, Gus, and talk about the fight. Gus is Are you back, Daniel? Okay. Sorry, having technical issues here. Trying to mute folks. All right. Issues with. If you can hear us, Gus, the issues with you. Mute your mic because I'm hearing the background. There you go. Let's move on and let me see. Try you one more time, Gus. Unmute your mic if you can. Talk about the movement bout.
Am I still getting negative feedback? Was that better?
Now it's better. I'll continue on.
Okay. The fight itself, Mike, there were elements where there was competitive sort of exchanges in the fight, but Canizales is a puncher, always has been a puncher. When you're talking about 65-70% knockout streak, orthodox, extremely unfortunate not to have won the championship in Japan against the fight that was adjudicated the draw. I felt Canizales was marginally the better fight. So I think that's where we probably disagreed a little bit. I felt, coming into the fight, that there was form, ability there. It wasn't in the sense that Lubin was trying to step into the ring against a washed-up, champion or somebody on the decline. Canizales is probably still getting better and better. I haven't seen any regression, although the last fight may not have been as good as the previous fight, but it was still reasonably fine for me. I felt he was just fighting down to the level of his opponent. But this particular fight, what he did, he was a bow constrictor. He didn't give Lubin any room. He's one of those guys who's just effectively on you all the time. He's not giving you, and Lubin didn't really have the speed of foot to try and evade him, to try and pot shotted him from distance. What I thought the errors that been made was that initially he was trying to engage with him at short range, not a wise strategy, up against a heavier-handed puncher as well, who couldn't really miss with that right hand, and the right hook as well was landing. Lou was just dropping his lead hand, and then hence allowing that right hand to come round, and and it just land at will. Eventually, he tried to vary his tactics and try to get up on his feet, try and sort of fight with a little bit more lateral movement, a little bit more sort of in and out. He was starting to have a little bit of success. But what Canizales did, and I think he structured the fight well, didn't really land too many sort of jabs, body punches in the first sort of sector of the first 4 to 5 rounds. Then he began to step up his body work in those middle rounds, and I think that was what really caused Lou Bin a lot of trouble. But he wasn't being flung around like a rag doll. So the corners always have that difficult decision. What do you do? A young guy in his second fight. He was robbed at the 2016 Olympics up against the Kenyan fighter. When he was favoured for the gold. So disappointed. Naturally, he wants to try and correct it somehow and win a world title. Make history in the process. So they make those decisions. In retrospect, you can be highly critical, but it wasn't in the sense that the body language wasn't too bad. He was taking the punches well, but you couldn't really read him. He was poker face quite well. But you could see he was getting a little bit ragged with his hands were dropping because of the power of those body shots. And eventually, the body cracked, and Canizales, just a relentless attack, very accurate, poised, methodical. And in hindsight, it was not the sort of beating that a young fighter can sustain. Who knows? Hopefully he can come back. We've already had Zhao Shiming, sadly having to retire off. I'm not sure whether he's lost the sight in his eye or it's depleted so badly to the extent where he can no longer have accurate vision with both eyes. But I'm not sure how he recovers from this one, Mike. That was a very, very subjective beating he took. He's gonna need quite a substantive amount of time to recover, and they're gonna have to structure his career a lot better than that. The flyweight, light flyweight, that's a killer division. I think the 108, I think it's one of the better divisions in boxing. You've got killers, in that division, and you've got some great boxers as well.
How would you compare Canizales and the family showed Saturday night to the other champions in the division? I think Kenshi was the best fighter in the division. Butler has two of the belts. You got Angel Acosta as well. How would you compare what you saw from Canizales to the other guys?
Mike, as I said, a dream matchup for me is him and Angel Acosta. I rate Angel Acosta so high in boxing. I think he's the best Puerto Rican fighter there is. Very heavy-handed fighter. He can knock out people walking backwards as he did when he won his world title. One of the best Japanese fighters, one of the best fighters in boxing who's not even talked about. Lost against him, but he came back and won a world title. I think he's Angel Acosta and Canizales. I think that would be a war, Mike. Very heavy-handed. Somebody. I think they'll be knocked. That'll be exciting. Kenshiro is getting better and better. Very, very decent fighter. May not be as heavy-handed as Canizales, But I think he's probably a better boxer than him. You know, Hickey Butler came out. You know, he's turned back the clock. You know, fought tremendously in these last fights. You know, to win the unified, you know, the championship. I think he's also got the Ring magazine as well now, hasn't he? I think he's the unified and the Ring magazine. I believe so. Yeah. So Butler's got that. You know, Milan Melendo, another fighter I really, really rate as well. He's still out there. So it's a tremendous division. You know, I think difficult. It's a difficult one. I think between them, Mike, I think, you know, there'll be wins and losses between all of them. I don't really see a standout. But for me, I just think Acosta's probably the best puncher of the division. A fighter I would tip to, but you know, Hickey Butler just has that style that could frustrate you know, an Acosta. You know, he's very good with that left hook as well. It's a real difficult one to say, Mike, but you know, let's just hope that, you know, in the past a lot of these fights, you know, they were fighting in between them, so if they can carry on that trait. And we saw a lot of fights in the 108 division, 105 between the 108 and 112 between the champions. So, you know, if that continues, then, you know, we've got some great fights forthcoming.
Okay, Gus, I think the echo is coming from your end. So if you don't mind, there you go. Keep the mic muted while everyone else is talking. I'm going to the news here. Going to you first, Lisa. Look, press conference yesterday with Eddie Hearn and his promotional outfit, the DAZN, how you pronounce it. I'm sorry for the bad pronunciation. I'm butchering it, I know. Basically, Hearn announced that he's signed a group of fighters, Bertabiev at 175, Maurice Hooker, Demetrius Andrade, and it's basically an announcement that Anthony Joshua's upcoming fight against Povetkin, September 27th, will be on his new promotional outfit. Also, as an aside, there was a bit of a dust-up between Joshua and Jarrell Big Baby Miller, who was in attendance.
Yeah.
Miller trolling did what he wanted to do, was get under Joshua's skin. You hadn't seen Joshua get that mad because of what Big Baby Miller said. So your reaction to, first of all, the announcement of the fighters that Eddie Hearn has signed, excuse me, as well as the dust up between AJ and Big Baby.
Well, first I'll talk about the DAZN, the fighters on the roster. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be the de la creme over here in America, because he was getting a hard time getting like the A-listers, so I didn't expect him to get anybody big. But you know, I knew that Katie, what's her name? Katie Taylor, right? She's an up and coming female boxer. I've been seeing her around, so I kind of figured she would be on the roster, and I've been hearing about Andrade. You know, I was looking for a big announcement like Keith Thurman for some reason, but I really don't know where he's at, because just Keith Thurman, I just really don't know where he's at right now. But
neither does anyone else. That's the problem.
Exactly. But as far as the Big Baby Miller and the AJ thing, I could not stop laughing. I'm sorry. He was a little disrespectful. No, he was a lot disrespectful. Let's just keep it real. He was very disrespectful. He didn't have to, like, as far as say something about his mom or whatever. But I think that was him. It could have been staged for all I know. But I think, but I saw like the veins protruding out of Joshua's neck. So I don't know if you could tell that he was really pissed. But I don't know, that could be like a something to talk about for a future fight for them. But Big Baby always talk a lot of smack. You know, I'm from around them parts, so I know the Brooklyn smack talk and all of that. And you know, it's just like but I just think that it did excite it a little bit, but some things just it's just the way you do things to me. I feel like he just was trying to get some hype, and he got some talk yesterday, and a lot of people was talking about him, and it took away from, the Povetkin and Joshua upcoming fight. It really did.
Big Baby, like I said, I saw it for what it is. He came there with an agenda to get under Joshua's skin. It worked.
Yeah, it
But
did.
I also remember it's the same Big Baby who turned down a fight with Pulev. So
Yes.
remember that
Yes,
as he's sitting there running his mouth, he got some issues himself. I'll go to you, Scorsese. Your reaction to the fighters that Hearn signed with DAZN, the fact that Joshua and his upcoming bout with Povetkin is going to be on that brand, that outfit, as well as the dust up between Joshua and Big Baby.
I'm most curious about the Beterbiev signing because he just was told by a Canadian judge that he had to stay with Yvonne Michelle. I don't know how Eddie Hearn is explaining how he got Beterbiev or if that's going to stick. I don't know if he's actually just announcing that Beterbiev will have one fight there because of the Callum Johnson fight. That's the
Mm.
most intriguing one. Somebody say
Mhm.
something?
Oh, she was basically just
No, I
nodding
was
to
just
something that you was
agreeing.
saying.
Oh. But yeah, the Andrade, if he can get somebody got feedback there. Somebody got let me see. Yeah. Okay, the Andrade thing going on. If he can get his career on track, then hey man, it may be a good sign that he's the guy to lead this new streaming outfit that's put $1 billion behind the sport. I'm still not sure how this is gonna work, how comfortable I am just sitting around on a computer waiting on boxing or on the phone. I love my TV, I love cable, I'm old fashioned. Um, as far as the fighter, every fighter, I don't think it's much that it's gonna garner a lot of U.S. attention right now, and maybe that goes as he shows, yo, my guys are getting purses, and we're gonna keep putting them out, and from there, hey, who knows? Maybe they get a damn channel if they get the right kind of fighters. I would love to see that. Um, the Joshua thing is bizarre because I thought he had more with Showtime going on. The Wilder fight, where is that gonna be a stream only fight? What the hell?
I don't know because Joshua's contract ended with Showtime March when he fought Joseph Parker. I don't know if Showtime will pick this fight up with Povetkin or will they go another route. I don't know.
I don't think they can. I believe it has to be. You got to be exclusive somewhere, right? I don't think Showtime's gonna be sharing the ball with somebody else, and they're already just getting like 400,000 views from Joshua. I'm not sure, but it throws a wrench in the sport, and it's just gonna go as it goes. Andre Billy Joe, exciting fight. I mean, I'm looking for all the success we can get in boxing, but at the same time, I would like to keep the money in my pocket. And they're saying a $10 price point for like Miguel Roman right now. I don't know as of now, but Billy, it's a few fights that they can make, and they got. I wish them the best, but at the same time, it was kind of hit and miss for me yesterday.
I'll go to you, Gus. Your reaction to what went down yesterday. Do you think, in terms of Andrade, uh, do you think that puts into jeopardy this potential upcoming bout with Billy Joe? Your reaction to all the fighters that Eddie Hearn signed, as well as your reaction to the dust up that went down between Joshua and Big Baby.
I didn't see the press conference or the DAZN sort of live stream, but I've been covering the sort of app and how Eddie Hearn had actually launched that sort of joint venture with Perform Media Group. Now, the transition to the United States was was always going to be difficult. Now, when the app launched in a lot of the other countries, they also had, but it was more technical different difficulties. But their largest growth market has been Germany, and some of the deals that they've been able to pull off there are long-term deals, and I think it's deals that will allow their subscriptions to grow substantially, and it's allowed their revenue to grow, within sort of 12 months from around 10 million to sort of 90 million. So the application is growing, and in Japan they've managed to negotiate long-term deals with the Japanese J League, taking it away from domestic television to their app, and that's like a 10-year deal. So despite all of the skepticism out there, they've got a very aggressive strategy of replicating, an Amazon, Netflix type of model for, the sports sector, which they feel is the last of the, the appreciating sort of growth markets. And they're patient as well. They're pretty much there for the long term. They realize they realize that their end goal is obviously to try and get the NBA, baseball, but a lot of those deals are tied with sort of Walt Disney's, Fox, etc. But they're prepared to wait once those deals are open for for negotiations, and they'll try and offer counter bids. So the money is clearly there if people understand. The parent company, Access, the CEO is the richest man in Great Britain. And if you look at his diversified portfolio and the sort of deals he's been able to launch, buying, oil companies, telecommunications companies, Leon Bassell, one of the biggest chemical companies, how he structured that joint venture as well. He did a very similar deal with boxing with the WTA as well, $1 billion, 8-year deal as well. So these people are not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. But boxing in the United States, that was always going to be tough. And I guess a lot of people were, when you're launching yet another application, which is just focusing specifically on boxing at the time, and people already got astronomical cable, satellite bills, and you're trying to take on a new application as well, $15, $16, or that's for a niche market and something that has been depleting over the last sort of 20, 30 years to try and regenerate that in the United States. And a lot of people have not been impressed with Eddie Hearn's mentality, and they're going to focus on all of the negatives. They're going to look at the negotiations with Joshua and Wilder, and they're going to make a decision based on that as well. The people realize that Joshua quite clearly has ducked that fight. There's no two ways behind that. I've covered that negotiation quite extensively. I've looked at all of the intricacies and all of the contracts and all the talks, and so people are using that as a barometer. And now people are also saying that when you've announced how much capital reserves you've got to try and lure fighters, that compromises your negotiation tactics. You never really reveal your upper limits. So a lot of these fighters, whether they're playing hardball or specifically, delaying it to try and increase, and looking at, other failed negotiations with Adrian Broner's, whatever, and then using that as some sort of a ceiling to say that, look, all right, if he's only worth $2 million per fight, I'm worth far more than that, irrespective of what I've been commanding. So it's going to put yourself, it's going to put you in a difficult position as well. So I'm not surprised as to what the signings are at the moment. Eddie Hearn his strategy was to try and capitalize on some of those cracks that were starting to appear with some of the Al Haymon fighters. We saw Varnes, first of all, one of the first fighters to sort of extricate himself, and he was quite public in doing so. but a lot of the other fighters have maintained loyalty. Although that position between the PBC and the networks, it's not 100% clear. Showtime is still pretty much financing a lot of their fights, so it's a very strange model. What Eddie Hearn is going to try and do is obviously 32 fights, 16 from the US and 16 from the UK, and he'll piggyback off Sky Sports. But the deal is separate very much. Eddie Hearn realizes that Sky also is the position with Sky Broadcasting Corporation as well, Mike, is that contrary to what people's belief, Sky is using their monopoly on a lot of the deals that they've structured in the UK. British Telecom is now the biggest player, and they're actually buying out. Amazon are starting to buy a lot of the deals as well. So given the deregulation in the UK, Sky's financial power is slowly curtailing. So that's why Eddie Hearn has decided to go totally independent and try and, structure his own deal. And it's not a bad idea. But the United States is a very, very, it's a difficult market, and it'll take time. And I think he will get better fighters, and I think he will get more world champions as well. But it's going to be based on the cards he puts, and Eddie Hearn has already come out and said that he's going to be putting on mega competitive cards. So it's a very bold words, and if he doesn't back them up, then this whole thing could just backfire, quite badly. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Demetrius Andrade, he's had a chaotic negotiation situation. God knows what he's trying to do. Why this fight has even gone to purse bids. Eddie Hearn has already indicated that fight, I don't think is going to happen. Andrade, bizarrely, is not even in a position to challenge for a world title. He's talking about having some sort of tune-ups beforehand, which is absolutely shocking. Billy Joe Saunders is obviously booing, knowing that, so he's in there. He's loving this position. Billy Joe is notorious for pulling out of fights himself, so this matchup is just pretty much chaotic. I don't think it's going to happen. Even if Andrade was in the position to fight, I couldn't see the fight happening, Mike. Frank Warren is not in the prime position. If you look at what he's been doing, his revenues are down in the mines as well. So he doesn't have a lot of revenue to try and pull fights as well. So yeah, pretty lackluster all around, Mike.
I see Daniel's back. I'm going quickly to you, Daniel. Your thoughts on everything that went down yesterday in New York?
You promise a kid from Brooklyn something, he usually wants it. That's pretty much what he had. Eddie Hearn's that's lesson he's starting to learn real well. We remember the rumor smell that supposedly that was going to be Joshua's next fight, American debut with Big Baby Miller. Lo and behold, that's not the fight. And lo and behold, you're in Big Baby's neighborhood. So I'm not surprised by the toss-up. It's going to be interesting what they're going to do with the whole situation, because I think Eddie Hearn's trying to position him with a fight Arthur Spilk, I think. And it might be a title eliminator if I remember correctly. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, as far as what Eddie Hearn's trying to do, I've noticed a lot of his fighters are co-promoted deals. So he's not the sole promoter. I think with Maurice Hooker, he's with Rock Nation. With Vitavev, he's going to do it with Yvonne Michelle. So it's a lot of things where he's giving a lot of the other promoters that don't really have a sweetheart deal like with the likes of Showtime or HBO, a chance at a platform. Now, Yvonne Michelle is pretty interesting because we know he's one of the promoters that can get decent fights with Showtime. But what you're starting to see is the full digitization of boxing consumption. Now, we can understand that, yes, you still want the networks around, you still want HBO, you still want Showtime, because those provide you prestige. Getting in the fight with the networks still carries some heft, but you're starting to see, like Jessica mentioned when I came back in, a lot of the network deals are starting to fade away, or they're starting to lose money. And I don't know how it's going to be affected, how the Murdoch purchase of Sky Sports is going to affect everything over there in the UK. So you're starting to see promoters really, really now trying to step foot into the digital realm, trying to take that part of the game into their own hands. What it is causing, though, is somebody, I think, pointed it out. I forgot who it was on Twitter that pointed out all the current subscriptions that you would have to put on right now to watch boxing legally, keyword legally, in the US. And it's a $1,700 investment. And that's counting HBO and Showtime. So I'm impressed with the deals. And like I said, first of all, the Povetkin fight, I get it. You had to make it. I'm not surprised. But it's going to be interesting to see what Eddie Hearn is going to be willing to do in this platform, because not all of his fighters are going to go into it, obviously, but I wonder what Showtime's response is going to be to this Anthony Joshua news, because you pretty much sure they were counting on still trying to put on that fight.
Everyone's kind of hinted at this. I'm just going to ask a question for everybody all around. Is streaming for boxing, is that the wave of the future? Will the networks become irrelevant, or is it a wait and see?
I'm so tired of the future. I don't even know I work a Fire Stick. Like damn, I got a remote. Like it's literally like people like, yo, you can watch the new Incredibles, and I'm like, I can't go to the movies right now. Yeah, you can. You got the Fire Stick. I'm like, okay, do I just buy this? Well, you gotta jail it. And I'm like, jail it? I don't. This is really getting upsetting. Like it is. I just want to watch my TV. If I'm already purchasing it, you can never give me more channels on your stream. I get it's cheaper, but I don't spend a lot of time in front of it. But when I do spend time in front of it, I find multiple things that excite me. I have my your internet package with that, your home phone with that, which I'd still like to have one. So if it is, maybe boxing's trying to leave me behind. So I don't know.
Lisa, Gus.
Yeah. Oh boy. I don't like this streaming for boxing. Which I have no problem. Don't get me wrong. I know it's the wave of the future and everything, but I feel like boxing is already like you said, it's become a niche sport, and it's almost like they're trying to eradicate it almost. And I don't like the idea of that. I like the idea of watching my television. Uh, I like the idea of being able to watch on a big screen TV. And if you don't have a Roku or Kodi or whatever, if you don't have these streaming these things that's compatible with this new technology, it kind of sucks. And I've seen and what's sad is that Al Heyman tried to bring this back. He brought boxing back on regular TV, and and all the money that was put into it and invested into the boxes and everything, and it's just so sad to see. I'm really upset about this. But boxing, a lot of people that I talk to about boxing, most of my friends, oh, I used to watch boxing. But it's like boxing, it's like the best has to fight the best in order for it to bring boxing back. And I don't know where boxing went wrong especially in the US of A. I don't know if it took a hit when it went from regular television to cable, but even when it started on cable on HBO in the early days, it was still a big thing. So I just don't understand, where did the fans go? We're diehard fans. And I'm just coming back into boxing because I used to watch it with my father and my stepfather. And so I've been back into it for a few years now. And it's just sad to watch, what has happened to our beautiful sport. But we keep it alive. But I don't like the idea of the streaming thing. I feel like it should be a companion too, but still look at how they took HBO's budget away, how they streamlined it, and how Top Rank had to go over to ESPN. So they're not really giving big budgets now. And that's my take on it.
Your thoughts, Gus?
Mike, from a technical perspective, a transmission that is being relayed by satellite as opposed to a stream via the internet is always a more robust, and it's a better signal that now the DAZN, when they launched in sort of Austria and Switzerland, they had those exact same technical difficulties. I don't think at the time the infrastructure was in place, so they suffered. Their launches did suffer with a lot of streaming and sort of buffering issues. Now, subsequently, they've purchased 2 wireless networks, and they're trying to rectify them, and they're going to need to do that because you can't have a repetition of those technical deficiencies when you're trying to launch an application in the United States where there's already a hell of a lot of skepticism anyway. But streaming, according to the masses, that is the best way forward. I guess it gives people a lot of flexibility as well. I know Gail and Jacob, they're high on the streaming, and I think they're watching their app. We know when they're out on events, watching the fights on their lap, etc. So it gives people that ability, and if you can relay it back onto your TV as well. So I've got no problem with that as well. I kind of think that Golden Boy have actually got a very good venture. Been trying to, with their deal on Facebook, what they're doing on sort of Facebook Live, free to air, the Golden Boy channel on Facebook they're showing some tremendous fights there, non-subscription based as well. I kind of like that. I kind of like that approach. If you can try and minimize the cost, minimize the revenues, if the pay-per-view market is slowly dwindling like that, then it's better. But ultimately, if you look at what the application has done, streaming applications has done in different sort of industries, it's actually lowered the wages for a lot of the fighters so a lot of those sportsmen and women are not actually happy with their pay-per-view events just being shown on an application now. So it allows the owners to certainly minimize the costs and all of the production costs as well, and so it's a cost-benefit analysis for them. But ultimately, it's still a monthly subscription. So if you got flexibility, if you're showing 2 or 3 very good cards a month, and your cost is what, £10 a month. I guess that is better than a 20, 30, 40 pound, subscription per month, and where you might just get one fight. But you obviously get a lot of other different television, so it's really down to the demographics, Mike. In the United States, I don't think a boxing only subscription is going to work. Boxing fans, Black and Latino, Hispanic, which is probably the largest demographics in the States who watch boxing, buy pay-per-views, from my understanding, but they also watch baseball, they also watch basketball as well. So you're going to have to give them that marginal, you're going to have to give that as well to try and, increase your subscription. So I don't know, Mike, the ultimate answer, but, satellite streaming, I prefer satellite personally, but streaming, I guess, that is the desired preference to a lot of these people who, with their phones and their tablets, and more people are now working on their mobile phones, Mike. Office spaces are no longer giving desktop laptops, they're giving tablets and handheld phones, smartphones as well. That seems to be the way forward now.
Indeed. I want to start previewing some fights here, and because we're a little bit pressed for time, and we had because of some technical issues, just didn't touch on a couple of fights that I wanted to talk about because of the technical issues early on in the show. What I'm going to do is in the preview is going to give everybody the opportunity to talk about the biggest fight of the weekend, and then I'm going to split it up, the rest of the fights up between one individual. The one fight I want everybody to opine on is the upcoming Cruiserweight final between Oleksandr Usyk, Murat Gassiev. All the belts are on the line. Undisputed, unified Cruiserweight titles all on the line for the World Boxing Super Series final for that Cruiserweight tournament. Going back to you, Gus, to start the conversation. Look, whenever boxing is good, we'll talk about it. What I'm referring to are things like this Cruiserweight tournament. My frustration in the back and forth talk with Joshua and Wilder, and while I'm putting a moratorium on talking about that until they actually get their butts in the ring, is because talk of Joshua Wilder, talk of Canelo and Triple G in the lead up to them finally coming to a deal, that put a cloud over everything else that's going on into boxing, including this Cruiserweight tournament, which overall has been fantastic for the past year plus. For the most part, very good fights, very good final, close to a 50-50 matchup that's happening here between Usyk and Gassiev. Both fighters have represented themselves very well. This tournament has been outstanding, in my opinion. I'm really looking forward to this final. Your thoughts on it, Gus? Let the conversation start with you.
Yeah, it's the best fight of the year, the most anticipated fight of the year for me. Fuck the Canelo and Golovkin fight. This is far better. You couldn't get a better 50-50 fight on paper, Mike. Contrasting fighters, but it's still a very difficult one. I did a 35-minute prediction video just today. But I've been thinking about this fight all week now. I'm actually happy the fight is in Russia, because from a logistical point of, although the financial backing is from Saudi Arabia for this tournament, anybody who seems to think that Kelly Sauerland has the net worth to be, paying the sort of fighter purses is gravely mistaken. But logistically, you're not really going to get into Saudi Arabia, Mike, unless you got an American passport or you're going there for religious or work purposes. So it would have been very difficult for fight fans to have, traveled there and acquired visas. But Usyk was away with a little bit of an injury, but, he's happy to go to Russia, and that's perfectly fine. He's had training camps at the exact same place in the past in the amateurs. They all speak Russian, so there's no problem there. But for this fight, Mike, Usyk has gone back to Ross Admer, and he describes Russ as his supervisor, not even as a coach. So he's had a very chaotic, that sort of situation. And, Russell was with him for the Michael Hunter fight. He struggled a little bit, but eventually he started walking him down. Turned on the afterburners later on in the fight. So, but against Breedis, he did have some difficulty. 2 very good punches in that fight. Breedis probably more heavier-handed fighter, but there wasn't a significant amount of clean punching in that fight, and Usyk disappointed me a little bit. He neglected the body work, but he was better with his jab, with his lead hand, and that's how I think he's going to fight in this fight. Usyk tends to structure his fights. I notice, in the first 3 or 4, if it does go past 6, 7, he'll use lead hand control a lot more, but he doesn't load up on his jab. If you compare him to like Anthony Joshua, Mike, Joshua never double jabs. Why? Because his feet are so firmly anchored to the ground, and he fires a very hard jab, and it's designed to penetrate the defense to set up his 1-2. Usyk completely different. He's not trying to land a hard jab at all. It's the fencing techniques that these European fighters use on the art of fencing itself. It's literally that. It's a probing. He'll treble, quadruple the jab. It's all about distance control. He doesn't want his opponents to come in too near him. He doesn't want to fight at short range. He wants to keep the fight long range and mid range. So in the early parts, he'll tend to use a lot more footwork, and he'll be using his jab. He's very conservative with his left hand. In the middle rounds between 4, 6, and 7, that's when he starts, working the body, and that's what he did very well against Marco Huck. Yeah, he was a veteran fighter, but the body work in that attack was very good, and eventually it allowed him to trap Huck, focus on the body, force Huck from a high guard position to bring his hand down, try and protect his body, and then therefore Usyk would give Usyk's opportunities to land head and body shots, work up top, turn on the afterburners, and then, the fight was stopped. Against Breedis, he couldn't do that. Breedis was trying to counter punch, use that straight right hand through the guard, but Breedis didn't offer any significant angles in that fight. Usyk started counter punching Breedis with his overhand, with his straight left later on in the fight. And what Usyk would do very late on, he'll tend to walk you down and try and knock you out. He's not a boxer, he's a fighter, and his objective is to try and stop you. So against Murat Gassiev, who, I still think he's an improving fighter, and not only can he can counter punch on the front foot, what he was doing against Denis Lebediev, but I think Usyk is far happier in fighting an orthodox fighter than a southpaw. Southpaws have given him trouble both in the amateurs, and we saw Glavatsky and Tabisa Mukunu gave him a little bit of difficulty. Usyk was very conservative. I think he was very wise. Glavatsky had a great deal of power in his looping left hand, but Usyk chose to outbox him, and I think he would do the same against Murat Gassiev, who's the heavier-handed fighter. But he tends to calibrate his attacks from his lead hand. He prefers that in his combination. He'll work the uppercut left hook, and he'll work the body as well. Against Lebediev, he had trouble with Lebediev, a southpaw as well. He had some difficulties in trying to cut off the ring against the fighter who was using a lot more lateral movement. But Lebediev was countering well with his jab and his right hook as well. So it took Murat a little bit of time, and his success was landing to the body. That's how he floored him with a counter left hook as well. But it was still a very close fight. Gassiev definitely landed the heavier punches, and he was more accurate as well. So, he was the victor in that fight. Against Dorticos, a completely different strategy. People thought he didn't have a back foot game, didn't have a game of, playing coy, taking the sting out of Dorticos, making him miss. But he was counter punching beautifully from the early rounds. So he's a better counter puncher than Usyk. Usyk is not a counter puncher. He's a high volume puncher. He'll structure, he'll break you down, and he'll try and knock you out late. Gassiev, I think, has the power advantage. I think both fighters can take a punch very well. You know, Marco Huck did land some mean uppercuts and straight right hands. You know, Usyk took them very well. You know, Dorticos definitely a heavy-handed fighter, landed some good right hands, some good hooks. You know, Murat, the Iron Man, you took them well. So two good chins, two good boxers. I think Gassiev heavy-handed, but I think Usyk is going to box a little bit more. I think he has to. He's not going to engage with him too much. I can't see any knockdowns in this fight. I can't see any knockouts, Mike. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think Usyk will probably outwork him from the sense of fighting a little bit more at long range. I think Murat is going to have trouble with the southpaw, and a southpaw who moves as well. I think the latter part of the fight, I think it's going to be explosive from sort of 8 and 12. That's where I think Usyk will be happy to trade with him. If he hasn't taken any heavy-handed punishment before, which I don't think he will, I think we're going to get some great exchanges, and that'll be Gassiev's opportunity. But by then, I think he's going to be behind on the cards. So I think Usyk will probably eke out a 1-1-5, 1-1-3. But the fights in Russia, you never know. It could be a split, could go the other way. But I just think Usyk will have a little bit too much, Mike. Back to you.
I think Mike might have had to walk away.
A little bit, yeah. Or the Google Lab kept kicking him out like it did me.
I jump in there. Keep it going till he get back. I can say I haven't liked the fact. Gus said something that struck me when he said Usyk is not a boxer; he's a fighter. I agree with that later, but what he's been doing as of late is he's been starting the fight. He's been the guy that has been heavy on the front foot. He's like, okay, I stopped Huck, so everybody's gonna get that same action. And he's gotten hit more. He's been in tougher fights. He's fighting a harder puncher than he's used to. I do think the Usyk that says, "Okay, I'm gonna outbox you, frustrate you, then beat you up." I think he's something special. There's only one performance I've been upset with, uh, and that was Glowacki, or no, I think it was Glowacki, where he had literally outboxed him round by round, and he wouldn't really go for the kill. Then he did pick it up, but he never got it. Um, I hope I don't see all boxing from him, but I'm rooting for him in this fight. But I think it has to start by being cautious, taking his pot shots, getting his counters off, making Gassiev realize he's in there with a skilled thinker, that has a real pedigree. And from there, like Gus said, get up on the cards, make it exciting, but still be in heavy control, and probably sort of short circuit Gassiev in his corner a bit. Make Abel not know what's going on. Make Abel tell the fighter, look, the fighter can sense when the trainer can't help him. Then he might feel he can't help himself. Usyk got to take the brain. He got to take the brain and the rest and go with it. Should be a good fight, but I think it's Usyk's to lose. If he come out and he's only thinking fight, walking on the punches, and he doesn't do well, just like Dorticos didn't do well. A guy steps onto you, you're walking them down, and then they do something very smart. They step onto you. Usyk gets hit that way, just like Dorticos does. So if that's what he's gonna do, I'm gonna be highly upset with the corner and his performance. But let's see it. I hope both men bring the game plan to work best for them, and then we realize, what they really are. The man that wins say, "Yo, you beat the best of this guy." So I would love to. I would love to see both corners, both camps have their best chance of winning. I think that's for Usyk. 2 box. That's the best of him. Take the back foot. Look for your counters. Lead when you can. Like you said about Gassiev, he will come forward on the front foot and land his counters, and they are heavy. I think that's the best of him, but he did show another brand to him with Dorticos where he's getting pushed backwards, but he's able to step in and do the work. So I'm hoping that's what we see, and then if it meshes, who knows? I love the fight though.
Lisa?
Yeah. This is going to be epic. I'm looking forward to this. This weekend, right?
This
Hello?
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. I started watching it late because they didn't really show it here in America. That we didn't have any TV rights to it, and you know, so I had to watch it on YouTube, and it's been pretty good. It's been really good. And that, you know what? I think that's why when Michael was talking earlier, I think that's why some of the other fights or proposed fights have overshadowed this tournament because they didn't have any, like, a lot of people didn't know about it here in America, like how the Super Six was, like so many people was involved with it. Cause this could have been bigger than it was, but than it has been, but it's been pretty good. I'm really looking forward to it, and yeah, Usyk is a very skilled fighter, very skilled fighter. I just don't want him to trade. I just think if he, but you do want to entertain at the same time. I think if he boxes beautifully, um, he can win it. But it's gonna be a tough fight. Like his competitor. I didn't even know who the guy was, but I've seen Usyk before, and I've been watching him. No, he's good, And the other gentleman, corruption from boxing, was talking about the fencing. I just found out about that, and how the Eastern Europeans do the fencing and everything, and it's just pretty cool. With the jab, and like I remember Vlad did that a lot. So I'm learning so much about boxing. I'm still a newbie, so I'm learning. Like, I can't break fights down like you guys, but I'm learning. I'm still a baby in this, and I'm looking forward to this fight this weekend. It's gonna be really cool. I'm rooting for Usyk though. I like him. I really like Usyk. I look like this. He's gonna be a pound for pounder, definitely. If he wins this tournament, definitely. And hey, this is really big. This is really big. So this next tournament, the 141, hopefully, well, yeah, it's going to be in DAZN. God, why can't the major cable companies do this like they did before?
Uh,
Uh,
well, I'll answer that question a little bit. The main
yeah,
reason,
go ahead.
particularly with this tournament, with the way it happened with the two divisions,
Hmm.
it's at least in American cable networks, there wasn't really an American to feature, particularly in the cruiserweight one. The closest person that could have gone there would have been Steve Cunningham, but
Or
he
what
was
about
part of.
Tabiti?
Say again?
What about Tabiti? They didn't throw him in there.
Oh, he didn't
Nope.
want that. He didn't want that work.
Yeah, you want that? Not in the cruiserweight. No, that the cruiserweight tournament. No, that was the better of the two tournaments.
Yeah, he
The
kind of
super.
just.
No, I'm saying Tabiti is Floyd Senior
Yeah,
trains him.
he's just stepping up though.
Yeah,
he don't
he's
want
not
that
ready.
work.
He's not ready.
To
Yeah,
beat
he's not ready for.
Tabiti would have taken the beating and retired in Tahiti.
Oh God.
Oh,
Maybe.
that's
Oh
why I miss
God.
Very
Gus, man. That's why I miss Gus. But this fight, you rarely get a tournament where the actual two best fighters are actually meeting in the final. And that's what you have in this tournament. And they showed different variances to their game. I love the fact that Gassiev showed that he can counter really, really effectively. He showed that his sparring, or at least just watching Gennady Golovkin spar, since they're in the same
Hmm.
camp, how varied his punches are, how much he digs to the body, how good he's been fighting at the back from the Dorticos fight. Now, granted, Dorticos didn't have much other than the 1-2 to go into it. That's something that Usyk has more in spades. Usyk is coming from the Lomachenko camp, in a way. But the problem is, though, is he's been trying to be forced more to being a more of a fighter than a boxer since he left Mr. Bashir. But he still shows skills. He still shows a good ring awareness. And he does show that he will step up his game with Nipe. And he's going to need to against Gassiev. Gassiev, I can agree, is a better counterpuncher in the way that they fight. What's going to be interesting, though, is if Gassiev can do more off the back foot rather than just counter the 1-2s like he did with Dorticos. Because, like I said, Usyk's going to try to throw uppercuts. Usyk's going to try to throw hooks and land body shots, but try to do it effectively at a distance where it helps him. And it might reach a situation where he tries to go for the gusto after the cards get a little bit, but like Gus mentioned, this is in Russia. I'm one of the people that still says that Ledebev barely beat Gassiev, but they gave it to Gassiev. And that was between two Russians. This is between a Russian and a Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so there's a whole level of intrigue into it, but whichever man wins, unless it becomes a complete and utter travesty, will deserve the win. And we have to remember, this is for all the belts. They'll be the completely unified Cruiserweight champion. I don't think we've seen that in this style of tournament since Holyfield, as far as I can remember.
Undisputed, right?
Undisputed.
Yeah.
Well, you can somewhat try to make a case for Ledebev with the WBA, but then the WBA does stupid things. So
okay, on balance, Usyk is the better fighter, better overall boxer. Really uses his height well. Really uses his reach well. Good footwork. The problem is, for me, he doesn't stay disciplined that way all the time. Scorsese's right. On too many occasions, particularly early in the fight, he tries to sets the pace and fights. And sometimes at the end of fights, when fatigue sets in, he gets hit. You saw that in his last fight. My worry is, how can I put this? I can see a scenario where Usyk does enough to earn a decision, but doesn't get it, because of location. I fear if the fight is close, particularly really close, 1, 2, 3 points, that the fight is going to go to Gassiev. And because Gassiev, I think Gus alluded to this, finishes the fight very, very strong, has very good conditioning. If he can get to Usyk late because of his power and his combination punching, he could stop. He could put Usyk down late. So for me, Usyk is the better fighter, and on paper should win. But I'm going to go against the apple cart here. I think Gassiev is going to get this fight by close decision, in a decision that may be unpopular to some. I'm not saying I'm going with Gassiev, but I think he's going to win the fight. I think he's going to get a decision. That's my opinion. You was wanting to say something, Gus?
Yeah, it's one of those fights, Mike, that can go either way like that on points. But the judges are not going to award a draw. The Sauerlands are under a bit of pressure to get a proper conclusion of this tournament. So obviously would allow a precursor for the next two. But something I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, Mike, is that if you look at Usyk's and the distribution of his punches, his activity actually increases in the second half of the fight. And I don't think he gets tired is because he doesn't load up on his punches. Hence why his conditioning and his pacing is actually very good. He's high work rate, but he doesn't sit down on his punches until very later on. And if you look at those fights which have gone on to points, just look at his punch stats, like rounds 8 to 12. His punches go up to 60, 70, 80. He really does turn it on. And Murat is the same if you look at the Dorticos fight as well. He's been knocking out a lot of opponents, but any fights which have gone 12, his jabs will cut down, but his power punches increases and his body punches increases as well. So they're very similar like that. They'll get better and better, and if it does go later on, and let's hope it does, that's when I think we're going to get the better exchanges, the last sort of 4 rounds.
Fair enough. I'm going to split these fights here individually. I'll go to you, Daniel, and talk about the undercard of this cruiserweight final. Cecilia Braekhus, who was in a very tough fight very tough fight last time out, knocked down as a matter of fact. She's going to be fighting on this undercard. I don't know much about the opponent, but Daniel, thoughts on Cecilia Braekhus coming off such a tough fight last time out?
It was a tough way to do an American debut, but I think for her it's smart to try to get it back into the ring very, very quickly, because even though she did get knocked down, she didn't exactly take a whole lot of punishment. But the point is you're try to rehab, try to put the emphasis on you're only as good as your last fight. So try to get a quick knockout, get some decent money out of this, and ultimately just try to position yourself to get a better chance at a marquee American card, because we have to admit the card that she was put in, it wasn't exactly the most thought out card, given the circumstances that made that card possible.
It was rushed, in other words.
Yeah, very, very rushed. So, and this fight, like I said, she's trying to get back quickly. She's trying to shake off that fight out of the way. Probably get a decent victory in this fight, and try to better position herself for American debut, because obviously there's an investment to it. American Network, like I said, Showtime's invested in Katie Taylor. We know they're now heavily invested in Christina Hammer and Clarissa Shields. And HBO's not going to put on the fight unless they actually want to see what's going on. That's why they put in Braekhus. So I expect a victory from her. I don't know much of enough of the opponent for her to be considered a threat. But it is also, like I said, we know that Braekhus is getting along, unfortunately, in her career. So there's not going to be that many more fights to come. So the more she can get, the better for it.
Going to you, Gus, for this next fight. Alberto Machado won the title last year, with many considered an upset against Jezreel Corrales. He's finally getting back into the ring this weekend on HBO, fighting Mensah, who I believe is his #1 contender. Machado, to me, Gus, strong, powerful, but an unfinished product. Do you think there's a bit of danger here because of that, and the fact that he's coming off this fight will be coming off of a 9-month layoff? The fact that he's been on the show so long, do you think there will pose any difficulties here against Mensah?
No, I don't think so, Mike. I think given that how many times was he knocked down in the Corrales fight? Was it
Once, I know of. Could have been twice, but I know he was knocked down once at least.
Yeah, and Corrales was having a lot of success in the fight, so he was shipping a bit of punishment. But he's a heavy-handed puncher, so eventually, the power got him out of trouble. Certainly in that fight, there was talk about a rematch with Corrales, and I was definitely keen for that. Jezreel, he was certainly in there. His people were trying to, but yeah, it's been very disappointing. We were kind of hoping him and Miguel Burchell would just be a perfect fight. At Mexican sort of Puerto Rican, rivalry, Orthodox Southpaw unification. That would have been perfect. But I'm not sure what's been going on with his promotional status. I'm not sure whether Golden Boy are still, have some sort of options on him, or if they signed him outright, or is he still with a local promoter in Puerto Rico? But no, I think it's okay, Mike. If you've taken a bit of punishment, you've won a maiden world title. 9 months maybe pushing it a little bit, but I know what you mean. But we're in that era where fighters and champions are just fighting sort of once, twice a year. So it's the frustration that us hardcore boxing fans just continue to suffer, and it's not going to get any better, unfortunately. Good fighter, really good fighter. I think let's hope he can get past this, and finally we can get some fucking unifications in that division, because it's just becoming, the 130 is just becoming the most frustrating division there is. And God knows whether we're even going to see him, because I don't know what the fuck Miguel Burchell is doing as well. He just seems to be taking easy fights as well. So, man.
Well, Burchell I'll give you some update on that, because I wrote an article about this for Three Kings Boxing. Burchell, he's in negotiations right now for his mandatory defense. They're hoping to avoid a purse bid, which will occur. The date for a possible purse bid is next month, but Golden Boy and I forgot the other promotional outfit. They're trying to work something out where they can fight possibly in October on HBO. So that's the update regarding Burchell. They're trying to negotiate a defense against his number one contender, Mickey Roman.
Okay.
Okay. It's Sanford's the Burchell's promoter.
There you go. There you go. Go to you for this final fight. And let me say, I even though I do have some concerns about the long layoff for Machado, I never like fighters having such a long layoff, particularly fighters who are young and still developing. I think he will have enough to beat Mensah. Final fight, I'm going to you, Lisa, on this one. Jaime Munguia, coming off of his destruction of Saddam Ali, and I'll continue to say that Golden Boy, they set Ali up. Had no reason putting him against that young, essentially middleweight fighting at 154. Well, Munguia is returning to the ring on HBO on Saturday, fighting Liam Smith, number one contender. Listen, Munguia, he destroyed Saddam Ali. Liam Smith may go a few rounds longer against Munguia, but it's not going to be that much longer. This guy's a young tiger. He reminds me of Trinidad when Trinidad was on the come up at 147 back in the 90s. He's a machine offensively. Big, strong dude. I just think that Beefy Smith is going to get tenderized and eventually cooked Saturday night in Vegas. Your thoughts?
Oh, I agree. Oh God, that dude is huge. He's gonna destroy Liam Smith. I mean, maybe not as quick as he did Saddam Ali, but I just don't see Liam Smith hanging in there with that young guy. That young guy is he's a monster. He's truly a monster. Um, I I'll give it to like 5 rounds, maybe, maybe 6. But I just don't see. I say by decapitation, he's gonna destroy him.
Quick
That's what
word on
I
this.
see.
Quick word on this fight, Gus and Daniel, before we start shutting things down.
It's going to be a pleasure seeing Liam Smith on the stretcher, Mike.
Oh yeah, we have to remember. I remember Gus's longtime feud with the Smith family. But I completely agree. I completely agree. There's a reason I had my Jaime Munguia as my prospect of the year last year. I knew this kid had power. I knew this kid had snap. I just didn't know which division he was going to rest in. And he's chosen a good division, junior middleweight. Liam Smith's going to give him a decent test as far as going rounds because he is a veteran. He has held the title before, but that kid has youth, punching power, and good reflexes that go along with it that can pretty much counter any pretty much thing that Smith can do. So this is going to be a quick fight. And Munguia is a Golden Boy fighter now, so it keeps a belt on him. And we have to see this kid grow because it's a junior middleweight. It's a very interesting division.
Yeah.
If Beefy decides to play it safe and fight in cautious survival mode, it may go 8. If he actually tries to dare go out and fight this dude, it won't go past 3-4. Either way, Munguia is going to eventually find this dude, and he's too big. He's too big and he's too powerful for Beefy Smith, who, as Gus has said earlier, they talk about Beefy Smith's last time, his last fight out, that ended in some shaky, questionable circumstances. And then, yeah, Gus, his issue, I'll just say, put it politely, with Liam Smith is valid, and he said it on here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report months ago. You want to say something, Gus?
Well, you know, Mikey, it's the entire Smith clan, you know. Well, you know, I can just do an independent show just talking about them, but
and I think we're going to shut things down on that note. Let me get to the chat. I want to thank Lisa, who was in the chat earlier. Thank No Place Like NYC. Thank GM Strong for joining us in the live YouTube chat. Again, I want to apologize for the technical difficulties in the first half of the show. Trying to get some kinks out, but we finally got things fixed.
Thanks for having me.
Go ladies first. Go to you, Lisa, and stay on after the show. Stay on after the show. For those who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not an uploader, but my channel is 1224-529, and I have an Andre Ward avatar. But I'm not a uploader though.
Oh, this don't necessarily meaning uploads of the fights, but for folks who want to follow you, talking boxing or whatnot, I usually do this at the end of every show. Let the folks know where they can hit you up. I just want to give you a chance to prop up your channels or anything else you want to do, anything else you doing boxing wise. That's all.
Yeah. So like, yeah. But I'm in the chat, in the chat. My avatar's the Andre Ward one.
Okay. Scorsese, he was on earlier. Where to find him? Don't know necessarily. You can find him at T-Stripe on YouTube, Facebook, YouTube G+. He's not on Twitter anymore. His I think his low place YouTube is gone now. I need to get some update on him in terms of where to find him. Used to find him on Twitter at my low place, but he's not there anymore. His Twitter account's gone. His original YouTube channel is gone, I believe. Or it may be still around. It may be still around. Low place, hashtag MLPF. I have to look and see. But I want to thank him for joining us on the show.
Yeah, he's still around. I seen him the other day.
Yeah, indeed. Gus from Corruption in Boxing. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk music, like as you said earlier in the show, you did an extensive preview of Usyk and Gassiev. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, you can find me on the Corruption in Boxing on YouTube. And regarding Low Place, well, regarding the misdemeanor he's spoken about, the only place you're going to find him is Pelican Bay for the next 15 years.
Oh dear, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's not bring personal, let's not bring personal issues on public.
Well, I wouldn't say Pelican Bay. I would say Corcoran. Corcoran will be fine.
Daniel from the Inscriber, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat, or for those who want to check you out, clapping back at nonsense on Twitter, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks. Let's say you can find me on Twitter, Raucus99. Tomorrow night's going to be a show with Joe and Francis for Boxing News. We took a little bit of 2-week hiatus. I think we kind of needed it. And like I said, we're definitely going to be talking about what's coming up this weekend. Some of the fights are going into it. And I know I wasn't able to jump in because somehow the Google app kept kicking me out. But definitely want to talk about this avenue of streaming because it wasn't $1,700, it's $700. Right now, it's almost $800 annually for you just to be a boxing fan.
Minus pay-per-views, huh?
That's with pay-per-views. That's if you do.
Oh,
that's if you do 2 pay-per-views a year.
Oh, if you do, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But either way, that's close to $600. That's at least 4 times more than the streaming services that you get that with NFL ticket, NBA League Pass, any of the leagues. Like they charge a whole season, saying it's 1/4 of what you would spend annually trying to get boxing.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not paying that much for that. I tell you that. I can just go to underground streaming route and dare they try to catch me. For those who want to talk boxing with me or whatever music, you can check me out on Twitter, Brother JR, at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, blog page is the best place to go to. P4P Box Report .wordpress.com. Right of the page, you can find the links to the channels and pages, G+, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook. Also links to where to find the show. SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM, Mixcloud. On the next episode, we will do a recap of the World Boxing Super Series Cruiserweight final between Usyk and Gassiev. We will also do a recap of Braekhus' fight. I'm not going to try to pronounce. I'll just say Ina because that's her first name, Ina. We will do a recap of Munguia, Liam Smith, as well as Alberto Machado and Rafael Mensah. And we will do a preview of highly anticipated showdown lightweight division. Mikey Garcia fighting Robert Easter Jr., WBC IBF unification bout there. Do a preview of Dillian White. Very good fight at heavyweight, fighting Joseph Parker on the undercard of that. Carlos Takam fighting Derek Chisora. Katie Taylor fighting on that undercard. The rematch between Conor Ben and Pen Yang, the Frenchman. Ben and Pen Yang, one of the best fights so far in 2018. Back and forth battle. Some other, I think there was another fight. No, it's not. So we'll do it. Luis Ortiz. He's also fighting on the undercard of Mikey Garcia and Easter Jr. So we will talk about all of those bouts. We may, Gus, do a recap, a preview, excuse me, of Sho Kimura, who's defending his flyweight belt as well as Freshmark Gus, who I believe is 50-0. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gus. I see Gus is left. Oh well. Who I believe is 50-0. We may do a preview of those smaller weight fights. We'll see.
You mean CP Freshmark?
Yeah, I may.
That's my dude. Yeah.
I may do a preview of those fights. So yeah, for Gus, for Scorsese, for Lisa, first time on Pound for Pound Box Report. For Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 215, Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone else, have a good evening and good night.